Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
All right, well, today we're diving into something that I think is going to be super relevant to all of us, and that is the U.S.-China tech rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like this high-stakes chess match going on globally, right? But instead of knights and pawns, we're talking about things that you use every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Things like smartphones, artificial intelligence.
And even electric vehicles.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So to really get into this, we've got this huge stack of news articles, reports. We even found some firsthand accounts from folks who are kind of right there in the middle of this rivalry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And the goal today is to help you guys listening understand not just like what's happening on the surface,
Right.
but like what does this mean for you? You know, what are the implications of all this?
Yeah, because it really is intertwined with our lives in ways we don't often think about.
Totally.
Imagine a world where the apps you use or the car you drive could actually be like a political statement.
Oh, wow.
It's already happening.
I mean, like the whole thing with Red Note, right?
Sure.
Millions of Americans downloaded this new social media app just because there were these rumors that TikTok might get banned.
Yeah.
It was like this huge digital protest almost, like people were voting with their downloads.
Exactly. And that right there is a perfect illustration of this really interesting trend we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Some are calling it apptivism, where basically people are using the apps that they choose as a way to express their political views or their national loyalties.
Yeah, so it's not just about like, oh, this is a cool new app, I want to try it. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm making a statement by using this.
Absolutely. It adds a whole other layer to the tech landscape.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's fascinating to see how it unfolds and how it plays out.
Absolutely. And I think this activism, it's just like one little piece of a much bigger puzzle, right?
Oh, for sure.
Which is this rise of China as a tech superpower.
Right.
We've known China for years as like the world's factory,
Yeah.
like the place where things are made. But they're not content with just manufacturing anymore.
Oh, no. They're pouring tons of resources into research and development.
Yeah.
And they're aiming to basically be global leaders when it comes to innovation.
Yeah, they're investing a ton of money in it, too.
Oh, yeah. Over 2.4% of their GDP goes to R&D.
Wow.
Which is massive, and it's showing results. They're catching up to the U.S. super quickly in areas like AI and 5G.
And I mean, think about it, like companies like Huawei, Xiaomi.
Yeah.
I mean, a few years ago, most people outside of China had never even heard of these companies.
Right.
And now they're like going head to head with Apple and Samsung.
They really are. It's incredible. And, the big difference here is the Chinese government is so heavily involved in this tech boom.
Mm-hmm.
They're providing tons of subsidies. They're investing directly in research. They're even creating these whole tech hubs. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like a top-down approach.
Yeah.
Versus like in the U.S., it's always been more of a private company, free market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like two completely different approaches. How can the U.S. even keep up with that kind of focused investment from the government?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of debate in the U.S. right now over how to handle this.
Oh, I bet.
Some people are arguing for the government to be much more hands-on,
Mm-hmm.
but others are worried that'll just stifle innovation
Yeah.
and go against kind of those American values of the free market. So
Yeah, it's this tricky balance, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing that makes it even trickier is that even as the U.S. and China are like butting heads, they're also really intertwined.
yeah,
I mean, the U.S. depends on China a lot for manufacturing,
Yeah.
for all sorts of things, smartphones, electric vehicles.
even some military tech.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that dependence, it really creates some serious vulnerabilities.
Yeah, like what kind of vulnerability?
Like if you think about rare earth metals,
Okay.
those are absolutely essential for making all kinds of high-tech products.
Like what?
I mean, smartphones, wind turbines, you name it. And right now, China controls like 80% of the global supply of those rare earth metals.
Wow.
So imagine what would happen if that supply chain gets cut off.
Yeah.
I mean, smartphone production would grind to a halt
Oh, for sure.
and prices would skyrocket.
So the U.S. is basically stuck between a rock and a hard place.
They really are.
Already got to compete with China,
Mm-hmm.
but they also can't just like completely cut ties with them economically.
Right.
How do you even balance that?
It's a huge challenge. Some experts are saying the U.S. needs to diversify their supply chains,
Okay.
invest more in domestic production, and also build some stronger alliances with other countries.
Yeah, I guess it's like spreading the risk a little bit.
Exactly. The goal is to become less dependent on China and create a more level playing field.
Okay, so it's like this big geopolitical chess match,
Yeah.
and every move has these massive ripple effects.
Totally. And to really grasp what's at stake in this chess match,
Yeah.
let's zoom in on a really specific example, the electric vehicle market. Everybody knows Tesla, right? But there are these Chinese companies like BYD that are gaining ground like crazy.
Yeah.
They actually surpassed Tesla in global sales last year.
Wow, I did not know that they're that big already.
They're huge, and it's a lot thanks to their government support.
Okay.
China has put tons of money into building out their electric vehicle infrastructure. They offer these big subsidies to buyers.
Wow.
And they've set these super ambitious targets for how many electric vehicles they want on the road.
Interesting.
So it's created this boom in their electric vehicle market, which gives companies like BYD a massive advantage.
So it's not just about building the best car anymore.
No.
It's like who has the best support system around those cars.
Exactly. The whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the implications are huge.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking jobs, we're talking innovation, and even climate change.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Whoever wins this electric vehicle race will have a massive impact on the global economy and just the future of how we get around.
Yeah, okay, so we've got this like really intense economic competition, but it feels like there's something even deeper going on here, right?
For sure.
It's almost like there's this fundamental clash of ideologies happening at the same time.
Absolutely. At its core, the U.S.-China tech rivalry is also a clash of values.
Okay.
The U.S. is all about individual freedom, free markets, open access to information,
Okay.
whereas China really emphasizes state control,
Yeah.
collective good,
Yeah.
a much more regulated internet.
So it's not just about who has the best tech.
No.
It's about what kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly.
Like a world where information is totally free or one that's more controlled.
It's a fundamental question, and you see this clash playing out in so many different areas, from data privacy to censorship.
Yeah.
I mean, in China, the government has really strict control over what people can access online.
Right.
And they're monitoring tech companies really closely. In the U.S., it's more about individual privacy and freedom of expression, although there are growing debates about what the government's role should be in all this.
Yeah. How much should they be involved?
Exactly.
So how does all of this actually play out in our everyday lives? Like, what are the tangible things that are happening?
Well, think about TikTok, for example.
Okay.
The U.S. government is really worried about data security and the possibility of the Chinese government accessing our data.
Yeah.
So there are people calling to ban TikTok completely or
Okay.
force it to be sold to an American company.
So even our choice of what social media apps to use is wrapped up in all of this.
It really is. It's crazy.
Wow, it's a lot to think about.
It is. And it gets even more complex when you remember that the U.S. is also trying to figure out how to regulate its own tech giants,
Like who?
like Google and Meta.
Okay.
There are these growing concerns about the power they have
Right.
and the potential for them to, misuse data or stifle competition.
So it's like the U.S. is trying to juggle two things at once. They're trying to regulate their own companies while also pushing back against China.
Exactly, like playing two different games at the same time.
Wow. Okay, so to kind of add another layer to this already complex situation,
Yeah.
there's an idea being floated around that the U.S. should team up with its allies.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Like, countries like Japan, South Korea, those in the European Union. A lot of them are also worried about China's power.
Right, they have a lot of shared concerns.
So it's basically like forming a tech alliance
Yeah,
to kind of counter China's influence.
exactly. Instead of going it alone, the idea is to kind of build a united front.
Okay.
It could involve sharing technology, coordinating regulations, and even maybe jointly investing in research and development.
I mean, that would be huge
You would.
if you could get all these countries to agree.
Right, but of course it's easier said than done.
I was going to say, that sounds really complicated to actually pull off. Okay, so a tech alliance, it sounds good in theory, but like you said, it's easier said than done. I mean, to get that many countries to agree on something, especially something like technology, which changes so fast.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
What are like some of the biggest hurdles that they would have to overcome to make this actually work?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is trust.
Okay.
Can these countries really trust each other, to share sensitive information,
Yeah.
to collaborate that deeply? I mean, there's always this risk that someone might try to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's also the question of, like, who gets to set the rules?
Yeah, who's in charge?
Right. Will it be a truly, like, collaborative effort, or will one country kind of end up dominating the whole thing?
And you also have to think about the economic side of it too, right?
Right.
Like a lot of these countries are already really invested in the Chinese economy.
Mhm.
And if you start to try and decouple from China, that could have some pretty serious economic fallout.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money at stake.
Yeah.
And there's this delicate balance to figure out between, pushing back against China's power,
Yeah.
but also maintaining some stability in the global economy.
So it's not an easy question to answer.
Not at all. It's like one of those multi-level chess games where every move has consequences you haven't even thought of yet.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically this alliance does actually work.
Okay.
What would that even look like in practice?
I mean, imagine a world where, like, the U.S., Japan, South Korea, the EU,
Yeah.
they're all working together to, like, develop the next generation of 5G
Okay.
or AI.
Yeah.
They're sharing all their research. They're collaborating on standards. Maybe they even build, like, these joint cutting-edge manufacturing facilities.
So pooling resources, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be huge, right?
I mean, that would be a serious counterweight to China's dominance.
It would. It would be a game changer.
What about those rare earth metals we were talking about before?
Yeah.
Like, how would this alliance change that situation?
Well, that's one area where this alliance could really make a difference.
Okay.
Because by working together, these countries could start to diversify their supply chains.
Okay.
They could invest in some new mining operations.
Yeah.
And they could even start developing alternative technologies that don't require rare earths at all.
So it's not just about, like, catching up with China anymore. It's about getting ahead of them.
Exactly. It's about taking control of the future of tech instead of just reacting to what China's doing.
Okay. I like that. Be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
But, I mean, realistically, how likely is it that this is going to actually happen?
I mean, it's definitely a long shot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't totally discount the power of shared interests.
Okay.
I mean, all of these countries, they have a lot at stake here.
Yeah.
They want to make sure technology is used responsibly.
Right.
They want to protect their citizens' privacy.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure there's a level playing field for everyone in the global economy.
Okay, so maybe this rivalry could actually end up being a good thing.
It's possible.
Like, it could be the push that forces these countries to work together and actually find some common ground.
I mean, that's a very optimistic way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But I think there's some truth to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a common enemy to bring people together.
Right.
And in this case, I don't think the enemy is China exactly.
Okay.
It's more like the potential for technology to be used in ways that could be harmful,
Yeah.
in ways that could undermine democracy or freedom.
So it's not about being anti-China.
No.
It's about being pro, like, shared values.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
about making sure technology benefits everyone and not just a select few.
And I think this is a really important point to bring it back to, you guys who are listening.
Yeah.
Because in this world where everything's so interconnected, your choices actually matter.
They do.
The apps you use, the products you buy.
The information you consume.
Yeah, all of that plays a role in which direction this rivalry goes.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so easy to feel powerless in the face of something this big. Yeah. But you really do have agency. You have power as a consumer and as a citizen.
So you're saying we're not just passive bystanders.
No, not at all.
We're active participants in this whole thing.
You have the power to support companies that align with your values. You have the power to demand more transparency from these big tech companies.
Yeah.
And you can use your voice to advocate for policies that protect your privacy and your rights.
It's kind of empowering to think about it that way.
It is.
Like, we can actually make a difference.
Yeah.
But it's also a little overwhelming.
I get that.
Like, where do you even start? How do you wrap your head around all of this?
I think it starts with just asking questions.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to challenge the things you hear. Dig a little deeper. Try to see things from different perspectives.
Yeah, don't just accept the first thing you hear.
Exactly. And most importantly, don't get discouraged.
Right.
This is a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, I like that. A marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
So if this is a marathon, like, what's the next mile marker?
What should we be looking out for in the next few months, years even?
Yeah, what are the big things to keep an eye on?
We'll definitely pay attention to how these potential alliances are developing. Can they actually work together, or will they fall apart?
Right.
Also keep an eye on how the U.S. and China are approaching all these big issues,
Like what kind of issues?
like data privacy, artificial intelligence, how they're regulating tech companies, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
because their decisions are going to affect everyone.
Yeah, it's like we're watching this experiment unfold in real time,
Yeah, yes.
and we have no idea how it's going to end.
It's a really fascinating time to be alive, that's for sure.
Yeah, and kind of scary.
A little bit.
Okay, so we talked a lot about the big picture stuff, like
Yeah.
the economic competition, the political
All
maneuvering.
the high-level stuff.
But I think it's important to also zoom in on the human impact of all of this.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the abstract stuff, but ultimately this rivalry is impacting real people's lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, think about the researchers in both countries who are working on these cutting-edge projects.
Yeah.
They're collaborating with international teams, but there's always this underlying tension,
Okay.
this awareness that their work is being watched,
Yeah.
that it could be used for purposes they don't agree with.
That must create a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah, a lot of pressure, a lot of uncertainty.
Are there any specific stories that really highlight that?
Yeah, there's one that sticks out to me. It's about this Chinese AI researcher.
Okay.
She was working at a top university here in the U.S., doing amazing work in facial recognition technology.
Okay.
But she started to get really uncomfortable with how her research could be used.
Yeah.
She was worried it could be used for surveillance back in China.
Yeah, for sure.
And she was torn.
Right.
But ultimately, she decided to leave her job and go back to China,
Wow.
even though it meant giving up on her dream job.
Wow, so it was a really tough decision.
It was. And she faced a lot of criticism for it from both sides.
That's a really powerful example of the kind of ethical dilemmas that are at play here.
Yeah, and it's not just researchers who are impacted.
Right, like who else?
Think about students who are studying abroad,
Okay.
They're just trying to learn and experience a different culture.
Yeah,
But they often get caught in the middle of all this political tension.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they face visa issues, they get treated with suspicion, sometimes even discrimination.
Yeah, it's sad that something as positive as international education is being affected by this.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It's a reminder that, like, this isn't just a game, right?
No, it's not a game.
There are real consequences for real people.
Yeah. And often it's individuals who end up paying the price.
But so what can we do?
Like, what can regular people do in the face of all this?
Yeah, like how can we actually make a difference?
I think the first step is just staying informed.
Okay.
Read news from a variety of sources.
Right, not just one.
Exactly. Be critical of the information you're getting.
Yeah, don't just believe everything you read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And try to understand different perspectives.
So it's about being an active participant, not just a passive consumer of the news.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Challenge your own assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to people who have different views.
Yeah, have those tough conversations.
Exactly. Because I think it's so easy to get caught up in this us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
We are.
We all want a future where technology is used for good.
Yeah.
And that starts with having those conversations, with understanding each other.
So it's not about boycotting China
No.
or cutting ourselves off from the rest of the world.
It's about being mindful, being informed, and being engaged.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that this rivalry isn't just about two countries.
Yeah.
It's about a much deeper struggle over what kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah, what values are going to shape the future?
Exactly. What kind of future are we building?
Okay, yeah. So we've spent a lot of time talking about all these big forces at play, the economic stuff, the political battles.
Yeah, the race for the best technology.
Right, but
Yeah.
you're so right. We can't lose sight of the people in the middle of all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's easy to kind of get lost in those big ideas, but at the end of the day,
Right.
this is affecting real people's lives.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about all those researchers in both countries.
Yeah.
They're working on these super cutting-edge projects, collaborating with teams from all over the world,
Yeah.
but they're always kind of operating under this cloud of tension
Okay.
because they know their work is being watched.
Right, scrutinized.
Yeah, and even potentially exploited.
I mean, that's got to be a lot of pressure.
It is. It creates a lot of uncertainty for those folks.
Do you have any stories that really stick out to you that kind of show how this is playing out,
Yeah.
on a personal level?
There's one that really hit me. It's about this Chinese AI researcher.
Okay.
She was working at one of the top universities here in the U.S., doing groundbreaking work, like literally groundbreaking work
Wow.
in facial recognition technology.
Okay.
But she started feeling really conflicted about it.
About the work itself.
Yeah, like what it could be used for.
Oh, like the implications of it?
Exactly. Like she
Wow.
was worried it could be used for surveillance, especially back in China.
Yeah,
And she was really torn about it.
I can only imagine.
But in the end, she decided to leave her job
Wow.
and go back to China.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though it meant
Yeah.
giving up this amazing opportunity.
It did. It meant giving up on her dream job, basically.
Wow.
And she got a lot of criticism for it, too.
From both sides, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation. And it really shows those ethical dilemmas that are kind of woven into this whole rivalry.
It's not just about building cool tech. It's about the values behind it.
Yeah.
And how that tech could be used.
Absolutely. And it's not just researchers who are feeling this,
Right, like who else is kind of getting caught in the crossfire here?
Well, think about students studying abroad,
Okay.
trying to broaden their horizons, experience different cultures.
Right.
They're often the ones who get stuck in the middle of these political tensions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they face visa restrictions. Sometimes they're viewed with suspicion.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, even discrimination sometimes.
Man, that's really sad to hear.
It's a shame that something as positive as, like, international education
Yeah.
is being affected by all this.
Absolutely. It feels like everybody loses out when that kind of collaboration gets cut off.
They do. It's a good reminder that this isn't just some abstract game
Yeah.
with winners and losers.
Right.
There's a lot of collateral damage in all of this.
Yeah, and it's real people's lives.
Yeah. Real
Yeah.
people who end up paying the price.
Okay, so I think this leads to a really important question. Like, what can we do?
What can any of us do about this?
Yeah, what can everyday people do to navigate this, like, crazy landscape and make choices that feel good and align with our values?
I mean, first and foremost, I think it's about staying informed.
Okay.
Read the news from a lot of different sources.
Yeah,
Be really critical of the information you're taking.
right.
Try to see things from multiple perspectives,
So don't just accept whatever you read at face value.
Exactly. Be an active participant, not just someone who passively absorbs information.
Don't be afraid to ask questions either.
Oh, yeah. Ask questions, challenge assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
talk to people who disagree with you.
Yeah, have those tough conversations.
Yeah, because it's so easy to just kind of fall into that us versus them trap.
Totally. Like, it's easy to just write off the other side.
But honestly, we're all in this together.
We are.
And most of us want the same thing, a future where tech makes things better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And it all starts with talking to each other, with
Yeah.
trying to understand where everyone's coming from.
So it's not about, like, boycotting every Chinese product or something.
No, not at all.
Or, like, retreating into our own little echo chambers.
It's about being mindful, being informed,
Mhm.
and being engaged, like actively engaged in the conversation.
I like that. Be mindful, be informed, be engaged.
Yeah. And recognize that this whole rivalry, it's not just about these two countries.
Yeah, it's so much bigger than that.
It's about a much deeper conflict over what kind of world we're going to build, what values are going to guide us.
Yeah, what our future is going to look like.
Exactly.
I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
I agree.
This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And honestly, a little overwhelming at times.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But I think the main thing I'm taking away from this is that this isn't just some far-off event happening on the other side of the world.
Right.
It's something that affects all of us.
It does.
And we can all play a role in shaping how it turns out.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, we hope this has given you guys a better understanding of what's at stake.
And hopefully it's sparked some of your own thinking about this,
Yeah, maybe it's even inspired you to take some action, no matter how small.
Yeah. Any little thing can help.
Because who knows, maybe by talking about this, by making informed choices, we can actually nudge this whole rivalry in a more positive, collaborative direction.
It's worth a shot, right?
Definitely worth a shot. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.